flight control at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. They're continuing to step through some cabin configuration procedures while they're in their pre-sleep period, making sure everything is set up properly before they get some sleep for tonight. On the bottom right of your screen, you see Capcom Amy Dill down toward the left, and up toward the top of that screen is Flight Director Jeff Radigan. It's been just over 8 hours into the flight of Artemis II. A successful liftoff and ascent for Orion into a high Earth orbit where we find them now, over 36,000 miles away from our home planet.
Houston, integrity in cabin config, step 4 and step 7 are complete.
Copy, step 4 and 7 complete. And we wanted to let Reid know that we are done remoting into his PCD-1. We were able to resolve the issue with Optimus, and for Outlook we were able to get it open. It will show offline, which is expected.
Okay. He copies.
Those calls from Capcom to the crew about an issue Commander Reid Weisman was experiencing earlier with his PCD, his personal computer device, or portable computer device, I should say, which is how he accesses the internet during the flight. One of those things being Optimus, or the timeline for the crew that they use each day, as well as his email. And the teams here on the ground have worked to properly configure that device for his use.
Good morning, Star People. On your screen is a live view of Starship awaiting its second integrated flight test.
As the crew continues their pre-sleep period of today's timeline, some quick facts about Orion. Of course, our 4 crew members are in the crew module, and they have about 60% more cubic volume than Apollo, 60% more. That's about the size of 2 minivans. In total, 330 cubic feet habitable volume. When we had a view inside earlier, we did see some of their displays and controls, including the 3 display units that the crew is able to monitor and help command the vehicle with. Earlier, we heard pilot Victor Glover using some of the rotational and translational hand controllers. There are 2 rotational hand controllers and 2 translational hand controllers. And something that the crew will be working on tomorrow is exercising. This will be the first time that they exercise in Orion, and one of the devices they will be using is called the flywheel. This is a compact and power-free system that allows daily aerobic and resistive workouts aboard Orion. The flywheel supports exercises like rowing, squats, and deadlifts, and they are able to adjust the resistance levels as needed. Of course, aboard the International Space Station, we have much larger devices used for exercise for the crew members, but on Orion, in a much more compact space, we needed a more compact solution. In this animation, you can see the 4 solar arrays aboard Orion. There is a camera on the tip of each solar array. We had some beautiful views of Earth from one of those cameras earlier, and we are looking forward to some incredible views of the moon as we fly by on flight day 6. Each of those solar arrays has 3 panels on it, and each of those panels is about 6.5 feet by 6.5 feet. So the length of each array nearly total 23 feet. Each of those arrays would provide enough electricity to power 2 3-bedroom homes. 8 hours and 23 minutes into the flight of Orion, the first flight of humans on this spacecraft.
One of those
Our 4 crew members, Reid Weisman, Victor Glover, Cristine Koch, and Jeremy Hansen, lifted off today atop the Space Launch System rocket from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. They had a smooth ride to orbit and have since completed all required burns to put them in the proper high Earth orbit they are now. Earlier today, we also saw them transition to the Deep Space Network. This is the first time in over 50 years that we've had humans back on the Deep Space Network. We have had humans living and working aboard the International Space Station for over 25 continuous years now, but they they communicate through the tracking data relay satellite systems. That was one of many milestones for the crew today. We also saw them complete the perigee raise maneuver, the apogee raise burn, modifying Orion's orbit around the Earth, and keeping us in that high Earth orbit. Being in this high Earth orbit for over 24 hours allows the teams and the crew to check out the systems aboard the spacecraft before conducting the translunar injection burn tomorrow. The translunar injection burn is what will commit the crew and the spacecraft to flying by the moon on flight day 6, and that burn also serves as the deorbit burn for the spacecraft. The ability to use the translunar injection burn as the deorbit burn is because of a free return trajectory, where we're harnessing the moon and the Earth's gravity to pull us back home. Crew aboard Orion also conducted the proximity operations demonstration, namely pilot Victor Glover manually flying Orion in relation to the recently separated interim cryogenic propulsion stage. He commanded the spacecraft to move in as close as 10 meters or 30 feet away from the interim cryogenic propulsion stage and a faux docking target, essentially, allowing them to practice and learn what it's like to manually fly the spacecraft. This helps us understand and learn a lot about flying Orion manually, as we may need to do so for future docking operations ahead of lunar landing missions. Shortly thereafter, the upper stage separation burn occurred, taking Orion farther away from the ICPS, and that interim cryogenic propulsion stage had its own disposal burn thereafter. Since that time, the crew has been stowing their suits, getting their cabin configured, getting ready for bed. They had their private medical conference in which they were able to speak with teams on Earth about how they were feeling following the day's events. They are now in their pre-sleep period and are configuring the spacecraft by hanging up their sleeping bags. They also have the option to put some window covers over the windows in Orion to make sure no other light comes in, and we will get them some sleep. Their sleep period tonight is interrupted by the perigee raise burn, so they'll get about 4 hours of sleep here to start, and then wake up for those perigee raise burn operations. Perigee raise burn means we are lifting the lowest point of Orion's orbit around the Earth. And after that's complete, the crew will go back to sleep for about another 4 hours before they wake up and start flight day 2. You're looking at a live view from Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. We are in the White Flight Control Room just down the hall from the International Space Station Flight Control Room where you usually see us. And this is the Orbit 1 shift. You'll probably start to see some folks filtering in and out of the room as we will expect handover to take place around 2:30 a.m. Central Time. Just like Mission Control, we'll be monitoring the flight of the crew for 24/7 all throughout the mission. We will also be live during that time. You can find us as you're watching us right now on YouTube on NASA's account. 8 hours and 40 minutes since the launch of the Artemis II mission and the Orion spacecraft. This view from Mission Control Houston, and specifically the White Flight Control Room, which is the Artemis Flight Control Room here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Our 4 crew members aboard Orion: Reid Weisman, Victor Glover, Cristine Koch, and Jeremy Hansen, 3 NASA astronauts and 1 Canadian Space Agency astronaut, are getting into the sleep period of their day. They've had a very long day, having woken up about 8 hours before liftoff, spending that time getting suited up, waving goodbye to family and friends, riding out to the launch pad, boarding the spacecraft, waiting for liftoff, and then monitoring all of the steps through ascent. The crew is in a high Earth orbit right now, and the next major milestone for them will come in the middle of their sleep period. They will wake up in about 4 hours for the perigee raise burn. That is to lift the lowest point of Orion's orbit around the Earth, and again, they are in a high Earth orbit right now. Once the perigee raise burn is complete, they'll get the chance to go back to sleep for a little while. The view on your screen, clearly an animation of Orion, showing we are over 38,000 miles from Earth. The crew is in their pre-sleep period, or actually they've moved into their sleep period. And this visualization coming to you from the ARROW website, that's Artemis Real-Time Orbit website. You are able to access this on your own computer or cellular device if you so choose. We're happy to share it with you here when we don't have views from the spacecraft, but at any time you can log on, search for Artemis II, AROW, ARROW, and you will be able to find this on nasa.gov.
Integrity, Houston, for AGA readings, when able.
Go ahead.
Hey, Reid, sorry to pester you during your sleep period. I know you guys are finishing up cabin config. When you can, we will take AGA readings.
Okay, I just turned it on, so I guess I'll give it 5 minutes and then we'll give you a call.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Capcom Amy Dill calling up to the crew about their AGA readings. That stands for Anomaly Gas Analyzer. The crew is able to, and is timelined to take readings of the atmosphere inside Orion. Again, this is the first time we've ever flown humans aboard this spacecraft, and so we are looking to learn about what is existing inside the cabin and with the CO2 output of the crew and how the ECLIS system is working, and these readings help us determine that.
And Amy, we'll just sync up with you on where we got to on cabin transit config, and then we'll pick up the rest when we're awake.
Sounds good to us.
All right, we already called down. We're complete through step 4. Step 5 we skipped for now. Step 6 we also skipped. Step 7 and 8 are complete. Step 9 and through 11 are complete.
We copy all so far.
Yep, and that's about it. Looking at the rest, we haven't really tidied all the rest of that stuff up, so we'll have to get to that tomorrow.
Okay, we copy.
Eight hours, 52 minutes since the launch of Artemis II and the crew aboard the Orion spacecraft.
Houston integrity, couple sync questions. First one, just because today has been a little bit jumbled, are we safe to assume that any toilet non-use that's not per Optimus you would call up? We're thinking about calling you to see if we can use it for the next like 20 minutes or so before we sleep, and instead wanted to check that assumption.
Checking.
NASA astronaut Christina Cook calling down to make sure that they are able to use the toilet. There are times during the mission when they are asked not to do so.
And Christina, you are good to use toilet all night.
Copy, good to use it all night, including the toilet unavailable that we see on Optimus. Thank you for that. And speaking of all night, what time should we expect our wake-up music?
Checking. And Christina, to answer your question for wake-up music, it'll be towards the end of post-sleep after the second sleep period.
Copy, we thought we provided enough songs for even waking after the nap, but no worries. We will set our own alarms for PRB. Thank you.
And Christina, you are indeed correct, and we checked our song inventory, and we do have a song for a wake-up for PRB ops, so we will provide that.
Spacecraft is in their split sleep period, so today's sleep period is split in two. They will wake up in a little under 3 hours from now to complete the perigee raise burn. That perigee raise burn is scheduled to take place in about 3 hours and 27 minutes from now, but they will complete some preliminary targeting for that burn in just about 3 minutes to ensure everything is on track to execute that burn in a little over 3 hours from now.
On time, passing 30 seconds. Integrity passes the Austin Eagle. Target milestone. Mission control, Houston, good. Space launch system core stage. Integrity. In altitude. Traveling more than 12 miles per hour.
Good evening and welcome to NASA's Artemis II post-launch news conference. I'm Bethany Stevens, Senior Advisor and Prep Secretary, and I will be your moderator today. I am joined by Administrator Jared Isaacman, Associate Administrator Amit Kshatriya, Acting Associate Administrator for the Exploration System Development Mission Directorate, Dr. Lori Glaze, and Director of Flight Operations, Norm Knight. Administrator Isaacman will give opening remarks, and then we will open the floor to questions. If you are dialing in to be with us here today, please press star 1 to get in the queue. And with that, Administrator?
Thanks, Bethany. Good evening, everyone. So today, April 1st, 2026, 6:35 p.m., NASA's Space Launch System rocket lifted off the pad with 8.8 million pounds of thrust, carrying the Orion spacecraft and the Artemis II crew out to Earth orbit and beginning America's grand return to the moon. Now, about 51 minutes into the flight, during a planned handover between satellites, the Orion spacecraft underwent a communications issue, leading to a temporary partial loss of comms. The uplink from Capcom to the crew was being heard by the crew, but we could not hear the responses for a brief period of time. There were no issues with the vehicle itself. Comms with the crew had been restored. We're actively working the issue, and we'll keep you informed. The Orion spacecraft has successfully separated from the core stage, and its solar arrays have been deployed as planned. Soon the crew will execute the apogee raise burn, placing the spacecraft into a stable, high Earth orbit as we prepare for the translunar injection and the journey into cislunar space. NASA astronauts Commander Reid Weisman, pilot Victor Glover, mission specialist Cristine Koch, Canadian Space Agency mission specialist Jeremy Hansen are safe, they're secure, and they're in great spirits. We will continue to monitor their health and status as we move into the next phase of the Artemis II mission. So after a brief 54-year intermission, NASA is back in the business of sending astronauts to the moon. We arrived at this point through a sustained effort and national commitment and the work of thousands across the agency, our industry partners, and our international allies. I want to personally thank the ground crews, pad controllers, the entire workforce here at Kennedy Space Center. This mission belongs as much to you as it does to the crew. The crew is now in the capable hands of Mission Control Houston, the Johnson Space Center, where teams will guide Orion through each phase of the mission with the same discipline and precision that has brought us to this moment. We've certainly been here before. We know the challenges ahead. We have a lot of checkouts to get through before TLI. And when all goes well, everything is go. Artemis II will be moonbound.
Congratulations to all of you on a successful launch so far. My name is Jim Siegel. I'm with Florida Media Now, and I'm curious about when the astronauts will have their first meal on this mission. And secondly, is somebody on the Earth here, back in Houston or somewhere, keeping track of what they eat during this entire mission, and how do they go about doing that? Do they tell them what to eat, or do they kind of select what they want? What do you think?
Well, let's see. I'll jump in on this one. Well, what I'll tell you is they do have planned meals, okay? So they have a planned meal today. I'll tell you they're very busy. So ascent day is very tough. It's tough physiologically, and it's tough from a workload issue as well. And so this timeline between now when the crew goes to sleep, so MET of about 8:30 meals. I know they did in their flight suit. Some of the snacks that they can use if they need. But I will also tell you that flight day 1 and flight day 2, you might not feel like eating a lot, and that's just part of it. Your body is acclimating to 0G. Your physiology is transitioning from a 1G environment to 0G, and it takes a little bit of adapting. So right now they're working hard. They are doing what they need to do. They sound great on the loops. That was really a good signal to us that they're feeling well. But just know that that's part of the equation, when they get on orbit. As far as the food being tracked, yes, we have a food lab, and we have folks at the Johnson Space Center tracking what they eat, the nutrition, the calories. It makes a difference. They do this on Artemis. They do it on Space Station as well. So we're well versed in that. We want to make sure that they're healthy, and we also want to make sure we know what they're doing, what they're eating, so we can also track that and make sure that they don't need any supplements or anything additional.
Thank you. We'll head over to Joey.
Thanks, guys, and congrats on a clean launch so far. Jared, or whoever wants to answer, how were you able to resolve the communications issue, and do you have any guesses as to what might have caused that? And was there any part of the mission so far that appeared off nominal, or is everything looking good? Just curious to hear how things are going on that. Thanks.
Well, on the comms issue, and there may be someone here that has a little more detail than I do of having to run around quite a bit.
That's what it is, but we'll chase it down. But they were able to recover. They had intermittent forward and return links, so the burns that they needed on board it was never an issue. It was unusual for it to be dropped out for a couple minutes, so that's why we're telling you.
Any other off-nominal?
We had a transient failure when it gets exposed to radiation. They took one hit of those. We took about 24, 25 of those during Artemis 1. Again, normal, the onboard fault detection cleans that up, but we're just getting started, Joey.
They're right. This is a flight test, and a lot of what we're doing here is exactly this, trying to test out all of the things that require the crew interaction, right? And so we anticipate to have a lot of these. Well, that's what we're here for, work through them.
Sawyer.
Importantly, apogee raise burn. Go. So they're going to stay in space.
Sawyer.
Thank you, Sawyer Rosenstein, NSF. I noticed that the slide wire baskets happened to deploy during launch. Was that something that was expected? And can you give any initial reports, at least what you've seen from the cameras, of how the mobile launcher is doing, given the hope to be able to quickly turn it around?
Yeah, do you have something on the baskets? I can talk about the turnaround.
The baskets they're supposed to get out of the way. That's part of the plan. So otherwise they take plume loads, and we don't like that.
So I can tell you on the mobile launcher, our team has already been looking at a lot of the imagery that we have that was taken both during and after, and assessing that, trying to get the condition. We've got teams, I believe, going out there. They might already be out on their way to take a real look. Some of the good things that we've seen relative to Artemis 1, one of the issues we had was that the water that was supposed to be spraying down the launch pad, so that there were some issues there that didn't happen. We saw a lot of corrosion. The water was working, so things were getting washed down. We're still also going to remove some of the parts so that we can do some of that cleaning to make sure we don't have those corrosion issues. We haven't seen evidence of things like after Artemis 1, like the elevator doors were blown off. We haven't seen that. We're optimistic, but we got to get out to the pad. We got to look. We did a lot of changes after Artemis 1, trying to harden the systems so that we can turn it around faster. We do anticipate There will be some items that'll need to be replaced. It's a pretty violent environment, but we're hopeful that that's minimized, and as soon as we have more information on that, we'll definitely let you guys know where we stand and how quickly we think we can get it turned around. Thanks.
Lauren?
Hi. Lauren Grush with Bloomberg. I just wanted to get a gut check on how we're feeling about the upcoming proximity and operation. Do we have any concerns with that TDRS delay, or is that not an issue for that?
I would say right now we're on for the proximity operations demo. Haven't heard anything that's keeping us from that, Norm?
No, on track, ready to go. Victor Glover's going to be flying it. Reid's going to be working the procedure with him and cross-checking, and Jeremy and Cristine are going to be looking out the windows, also spotting, cross-checking, using cameras and imagery, and it should be beautiful, so we can't wait.
We'll go right over here.
Yes, Bert Dicht from Ad Astra Magazine, National Space Society. Just one reported what the ride was like to orbit. I know with the space shuttle, it was a pretty rough ride until there was SRB SEP. Was this similar?
Have you heard?
I have not heard a report yet. I know we will get a report. Again,
Yes.
when MECO happened, immediately they were getting prepped to do their perigee raise maneuver. That's critical. Otherwise, they come back to Earth, which we don't want them to. So they got that. They are working to get their spacesuits off. They just got the ARB burn, which was very important. So now they're working to get their suits off. So they are very busy. Now later today, I anticipate they will call down and give us a full brief as to how the Proxox demo went, how the ride uphill went, and I personally can't wait to hear the comparison between this massive rocket and the shuttle.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Micah?
Thanks, Bethany. Micah Maidenberg, Wall Street Journal. Maybe for the administrator, I'd like to ask you, I know we're early on here, how you're thinking about success for this mission, defining success. A lot of tests ahead. And just what happens if you don't kind of meet that standard as the flight unfolds? Thanks so much.
Well, I mean, to me, success is undershoots and in the water safely after a 10-day mission duration. So no early off ramps there. I think right now we're already getting good ECLIS data. We've never flown Orion with crew on board, so that's pretty important. I mean, understanding the Orion spacecraft is, it's paramount in this one to progress on to integrated operations of Orion with a lander. Every day we're getting data. It says, it was mentioned from the get-go, this is a test mission for sure. No crew have ever ridden this before. We'll keep gathering data over the next 10 days. We'll share updates, but we'll call success when they're in the water safely, and we'll start working on the next mission.
Jackie?
Hi, right here. Sorry if I missed it. I just wanted to check in on the status of the perigee and apogee burns. Are those both finished at this point? And then I also wanted to check how best way to explain to the audience why we're doing that apogee raise maneuver and why we go into that high Earth orbit. Thanks so much.
Do you want to take that? Oh, I mean, I can certainly say we completed the perigee raise maneuver. That was done pretty quickly.
to the ultimate desired state, but to build up to it.
I'm going to jump right up here.
Hi, Richard Hollingham, BBC Future. Related to Apollo 8 in a way, really. I just wondered what plans had gone into a new Earthrise image. A lot has gone into the aspirational nature of this mission. Have you a plan? I assume you have a plan. What is the plan?
Oh, go ahead.
I do know that the teams have been looking at what the opportunities might look like. They've looked at the different launch dates, and so I know that they're really going to try to make that happen. I can't give you a confirmation on that yet, but stay tuned.
My understanding is they have been equipped with additional camera imagery capturing, equipment. So
we're going to do everything we can to try and make that happen.
We're going to go right back here.
Thank you. I'm from a Japanese news agency, Kyodo News. My question is to the administrator. The United States and China are competing over moon development. What significance does today's launch have for the U.S. and NASA? Thank you.
Well, it's certainly an incredibly important step. I mean, this is the first crewed mission into this environment in more than a half century on a rocket that has never flown human beings before, along with a spacecraft. So it's incredibly important because we're going to learn an awful lot from this to inform subsequent missions. So yes, this is the beginning. I can tell you, having had an opportunity to speak with the Artemis II crew after the State of the Union address, we talked a lot about what we wound up sharing with the world at the Ignition event about adding additional missions, accelerating production, building out a moon base. I think it was very energizing for the crew because they knew that they were, this is a risky mission for sure. Any type of new knew it was building up to something. I think it was very helpful for them in that regard. So, and certainly it was very helpful for me to hear their feedback as well. I would suspect a point or two wound up in the Ignition event from them. So,
we're going to go back here to the white shirt.
Thanks, Denise Chow with NBC News. I think for Lori or Norm, I'm curious what you anticipate could be some of the biggest challenges over the next few days, whether that's from a spacecraft or system standpoint or crew workload.
I'll jump in. Flight day 1 from a crew workload is pretty tough. Between now and TLI, we're working the crew really hard. In fact, when they go to sleep tonight, they're woken up in the middle of their sleep to do the perigee raise burn, and so their sleep's disrupted. They're hitting on all cylinders. They may not be feeling well. On top of that, so we know that flight day 1 and flight day 2 up to TLI is really good. We know it drops off then, and so going into this, we trained for that. We did simulations for this. We put the crew in exactly that state. Now, they weren't on orbit. They probably were feeling great. But we got a good gauge, hey, are we working them too hard? And the mission control team is great because they're watching the crew constantly.
The Orbit 2 team of flight controllers is wrapping up their shift. Their oncoming counterparts for the Orbit 3 team of flight controllers recently joined them on console to complete a brief handover period before that Orbit 3 team takes charge for the next several hours. The crew on board the Orion spacecraft is currently in a pre-sleep period as they are preparing to go back to sleep for about 4 hours to continue their sleep period that had been split in two ahead of the perigee raise burn operations that were completed a little bit ago. Again, that perigee raise burn adjusted Orion's perigee, or the lowest point of its orbit, into the correct orbital geometry to set it up for its translunar injection, or TLI burn, which is planned for flight day 2. That perigee raise burn was about 43 seconds long. The Artemis II crew inside the Orion spacecraft is comprised of NASA astronauts Reid Weisman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Canadian Space Agency, or CSA, astronaut Jeremy Hansen. They launched atop a Space Launch System rocket, inside the Orion spacecraft named Integrity on Wednesday, April 1st at 5:35 p.m. Central, 6:35 p.m. Eastern Time from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Again, that launch took place about 14 hours and 20 minutes ago. And since that time, the crew has since been placed in a high Earth orbit where they will remain until that translunar injection burn takes place on flight day 2. About 3 hours into the mission, the crew then completed their proximity operations demonstration. That ProxOps demo tested Orion's handling systems, which will be used on future missions as Orion will dock with other spacecraft. And so through the proximity operations demonstration, they used the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, or ICPS, as a docking target. So it separated from Orion, and then the crew practiced flying their spacecraft toward and around it as part of that demonstration. And then after that demonstration was complete, the ICPS fired its engines for a disposal burn, and Orion continued on in its high Earth orbit. The crew then had the first part of their sleep period, lasting about 4 hours, again, before they were woken up to complete that perigee raise burn. And with that, and with the Orbit 3 team of flight controllers now coming on console to begin their shift, I will be handing over our live continuous coverage of the Artemis II mission to my colleague Nilofer Ramji, who will continue providing updates of Orion and its crew over the next several hours as we continue the Artemis II mission. And with that, this is Mission Control Houston.